Subtracting integers. Before I begin, I want to suggest that you watch the adding integers video before this, because I'm going to be referring to the tug line, and you might not know what it is I'm talking about unless you watch that video first. So you might want to watch adding integers before you watch this video. Okay, well, how do I subtract integers? Before we begin, let's take a look at the subtraction symbol, because it can mean three different things. It can mean to subtract, it can be a negative sign, and it can also mean the opposite of, and that's going to be really important in this video. Here's a couple of different ways I could show -5 minus a -3. Sometimes you'll see the -3 in parentheses. It's not really necessary. This is exactly the same thing, -5 minus -3. In the adding integers video, I used counters to show addition. It's just not really a practical method when you're subtracting integers. So I'm not even going, and it can be a tad bit confusing, so I'm not even going to use counters in this video to show subtracting integers. We're going to go right into the method that, the preferred method in my class, which is to add the opposite. We're going to change all of the subtraction questions into addition, because it's much easier to add integers than it is to subtract them. Very much like when you're in the fraction unit and you get to dividing fractions, it's just a lot easier to multiply fractions than it is to divide them. So here's what I'm talking about. We can turn every single one of these questions into an addition question simply by adding the opposite. We're going to use the inverse operation, because remember, this symbol can mean the opposite of. So the first one says 2 minus 4. I'm going to turn this into addition, and I'm going to take the opposite of +4. So the opposite of +4 is -4. So instead of doing 2 minus 4, this is 2 plus a -4. I'm going to set up a tug line. 2 goes on the positive side, 4 goes on the negative. I have a war, so I'm going to do 4 minus 2 is 2. And the negative side was stronger, so it's -2. In the next one, instead of doing -1 minus -3, I'm going to turn this into an addition question. I'm going to add the opposite. Now the opposite of -3 is +3. So I'm going to do -1 plus +3. So I'm going to set up a little tug line. -1 plus +3. I have a war, so 3 minus 1 is 2. This side was stronger. The answer is +2. Now this next one's definitely a lot easier if you turn it into an addition question. Right now it's 2 minus -2. If I turn it into an addition question, I'm going to add the opposite. And the opposite of -2 is +2. So it's just 2 plus 2. In the next example, we have -3 minus 1. I'm going to turn this into adding by add the opposite. And the opposite of +1 is -1. And if I set up my tug line, I've got -3 and -1 both on the same side, so there's no war. I just add these together. They're both on the negative side. I really could have done that one in my head. -3 plus -1 is -4. Now, it's kind of funny because every time I show kids this method and I give them this question, that's just a math fact. 10 minus 2 is 8. Because what they'll do is they'll turn it into adding. They'll take the opposite of 2 is -2, and 10 plus -2 is 8. So if you see a math fact like that, don't turn that into an addition question. All right, let's do a few more of these. In fact, this first one is just a math fact. 18 minus 3 is just 15. Let's move on to the next one. 16 minus 36. I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to take the opposite of +36, which is -36. I've already got all my tug lines here. So I have -36 and +16. I have a war, so I do 36 minus 16, which is 20. Which side was stronger? the negative side was stronger, so it's negative 20. The next one says 17 minus a negative 13. Well, if you turn this into addition, it becomes real easy to solve. I'm going to turn it into addition. I'm going to take the opposite of negative 13, which is positive 13. So it's just 17 plus 13. We can do that in our heads. That's just 30. In the next example, we have negative 7 minus negative 12. Let's turn this into addition. So I'm going to add the opposite. So now I have negative 7 plus positive 12. I've got a war. Which side was stronger? The positive side was stronger. It's positive 5. Let's turn this one into addition. Add the opposite. So we have negative 14 plus positive 4. I have a war, so I subtract. Which side was stronger? The negative side was stronger. It's negative 10. I'm going to turn this one into addition. I'm going to add the opposite. So we have negative 40 plus negative 17. We don't have a war, so we just add these together. And they were all on the negative side. It's negative 57. Next one is 2 minus negative 4. I'm going to add the opposite. It's just 2 plus 4, 6. Next is negative 12 minus 6. I'm going to turn this into an addition. Add the opposite. So I have negative 12 plus negative 6. There's no war. We just add these together. And because they're both on the negative side, it's negative 18. This one, I'm going to add the opposite. It's a negative 16 plus a negative 1. Again, no war. They're both on the same side, so it's negative 17. Let's do just a couple more examples here. So negative 4 negative 4 minus negative 4. Add the opposite. So it's negative 4 plus a positive 4. That's just 0. They cancel each other out. 4 minus 4 is 0. Next one, turn it into addition. Add the opposite. So it's positive 2 plus negative 8. We have a war, so we subtract. Which side was stronger? The negative side was stronger, so it's negative 6. The next one, I'm going to add the opposite. It's negative 1 plus negative 8. No war. We just add these together. They were both on the negative side, so it's negative 9. So we'll do 5 more examples here. It's just so much easier to turn all of these into addition. And we do that by just adding the opposite. This is positive 4 plus negative 8, so that would be negative 4. And I'm just going to do these last 4 examples mentally. The next one, turn it into addition. I'm going to add the opposite. So negative 1 plus a negative 5 is negative 6. I'm going to add the opposite, and 4 plus 6 is 10. 2 more. I'm going to add the opposite, so I turn this into addition. Negative 2 plus positive 5. If you remember my poker example, I lost $2, but I won $5, so overall I've won $3. And let's do one final question here. Negative 8 minus negative 2. Much easier to turn this into addition. So I'm going to add the opposite. You always take the opposite of what comes after the negative symbol, the subtraction sign. So a negative 8 plus positive 2 would be negative 6. And that is how you turn subtracting integers into adding integers questions.